Hello, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a 1954 movie, It Should Happen to You, that stars Judy Holliday, Jack Lemmon, Peter Lawford. It's part of the Criterion Collection's six-film curated section on Judy Holliday that premiered on June 1st, 2021. I've watched them all. I've been binging on Judy Holliday and Carole Lombard lately. There's also a section on Carole Lombard on the Criterion Channel this month. Of the six Judy Holliday movies in the collection, which does not include Born Yesterday, her first big hit, I liked It Should Happen to You probably the most. And one of the reasons for that, there's several reasons, but one of them is it has a really interesting premise. It's about Judy Holliday plays a young woman who's come to New York to make a name for herself. She's not successful. She's from upstate New York, Binghamton. She comes to New York replete with a Brooklynese accent that Judy Holliday would never waver much from. And but she's not famous. She does have a nest egg, a bunch of, I think, $1,000 saved up. She's walking around Columbus, the busy Columbus Circle in New York City, and she looks up at a billboard, a huge billboard that's for rent, and she fantasizes her name on that billboard. And then eventually she works up, why not? Let's do it. Let's spend the money and put my name up there. And that's all that goes up on this billboard. Gladys Glover, which is her name. And she's just delighted with it. She just spends a lot of time just looking, here's my name up there. But then the sign has normally at this time of year been part of an ad campaign by a big, I think it's a soap company. They want that billboard back. The founder of the firm is demanding that that the company that renting out the billboard gives it back to them. But Judy Holliday has signed on for 3 months, and she will not relent until they offer her 6 other signs scattered throughout Manhattan in very well-traveled areas. She'll get 6 times the exposure. So now Gladys Glover is all over the city of New York. When she mentions her name in Macy's, which is right across the street from one of these billboards, Gladys Glover, everybody goes wild, and you're Gladys Glover, you're Gladys Glover. Promoter picks her up to make advertisements. They put her on different variety shows, talk shows, and she has now become famous for being famous. And that sounds kind of familiar. And the son of the founder of this soap company is played by Peter Lawford, and he's a playboy, rides around in a really nifty-looking sports car. Ironically, Peter Lawford himself was kind of more famous for being famous. He member of Frank Sinatra's Rat Pack, but he was also part of Camelot, the Kennedy mystique. He was married to President Kennedy's younger sister and was married to her during the White House Camelot years. So he was really famous. He was not, he was a lightweight actor, but nothing terrible, but he was really good looking. But again, more famous for just being famous than certainly for his acting talent. And this is also Jack Lemmon's film debut. Now, Lemmon had made a considerable, I think he spent 5-6 years making television appearances. This is the day of live TV. I don't think there's much, maybe there's some kinescopes that are left of some of his early appearances on TV, late 40s, early 50s, even had a short-lived sitcom. So he was an experienced actor. But when you see him in his film debut, you wonder, how did it take 5 years of more supporting roles? He did win an Academy Award for Mr. Roberts before Billy Wilder really saw and was able to utilize this great talent, because you can see in Some Like It Hot and then in The Apartment, which really made him a huge star. But you can see the C.C. Baxter of The Apartment. You can see him in this in the role he's playing in this film. He's playing a documentarian in the opening scenes of the movie. He meets Judy Garland in Central Park, and one of the other aspects of this movie that's very appealing is that it's filmed in New York City So we get to see the exteriors are all filmed in New York City. We get to see Columbus Circle, Central Park, brownstone streets, busy the busy avenues and of Manhattan, and you get to see what it looked like in 1954, what it felt like, especially the Central Park scenes. So Jack Lemmon's playing a documentarian. They strike up a friendship in the park. He's immediately smitten with her. He has filmed her as part of his documentary, so he gets her address so that he can send her the final product of the documentary that she's going to be in. And a few scenes later, he shows up on her stoop, and she wonders, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, I rented an apartment here. And they barely know each other. Judy Holliday doesn't have any, she just laughs. And, nowadays you might think, oh, is this guy a stalker? But never even occurs to her, which is kind of similar to a scene in The Apartment, which I just recently saw, the Arrow version of edition release of The Apartment. And there's a scene in The Apartment where Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine are walking down the street, and he tells her all her personal information. How do you know all this? Well, I got your personnel card. I was reading it, and she laughs. She doesn't see anything wrong with that. And both Shirley MacLaine and Judy Holliday are really similar in their. They've gone over to the dark side for Murray in The Apartment, and this glitzy, inauthentic world of commercials and being famous for being famous, not for anything that she's ever actually accomplished in life except getting her name, Gladys Glover, up on a billboard. So there's similarities there with Lemmon, and the film was directed by George Cukor, and Cukor was really the sort of he oversaw Judy Holliday's film career. She was in Adam's Rib in a supporting role, a Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn movie, and he directed Born Yesterday, which was her big appeal, her big movie. And Judy Garland had great appeal. I mean, she had, like I say, a Brooklyn accent, but she used it almost like a musical instrument. It had inflections and comic undertones, overtones. She was a very strong woman. She's able to project that strength, also vulnerability too. She's not a pushover, but she can fall in love. And she made one of the other movies in this collection is Solid Gold Cadillac, which she made with Paul Douglas. Paul Douglas had performed in Born Yesterday on the stage with Judy Holliday. It was a huge Broadway success before it was made a movie, but Douglas was passed over for the movie and was replaced by Broderick Crawford, who had recently won the Academy Award for All the King's Men. And Crawford's good in that movie, but I can't help thinking what Paul Douglas would have been, especially after seeing Solid Gold Cadillac. He doesn't play the same type of character in the Solid Gold Cadillac, but he and Judy Holliday had real incredible chemistry in that. And you can see the softer side of Judy Holliday and how effective she was. I think only 10 movies she was able to make in Hollywood before she died, much too young at the age of 43 from cancer, but she was definitely a shining light of 1950s filmmaking, films, and a really unique figure. So sort of like the Carol Lombard, also the other section. She was the unique blonde comedian of the 1930s, and Judy Holliday, although a very different kind of actress, was nevertheless that same blonde, almost comic, comic genius of the 1950s. So that's It Should Happen to You. It's playing on the Criterion Channel starting in June 2021. It's a film I highly recommend in whatever format you might find that it exists in. And I thank everybody for listening to me, and you guys take care, and I will see you next time.